What's up, Lego builders? Well, welcome back to Coconut Brick Studios. Mygeeto is back, and this week I'm going to be pulling back the curtain and revealing what I want the vibe and look of the city to be. And spoiler alert, we're taking a trip to feudal Japan. Thanks to you guys, I had a breakthrough for the tunnel on the maintenance bridge and should be able to finally get it built. I'm also going to be decaling some more Galactic Marines, which is good because, as we'll discuss today, my window for being able to make those is quickly closing. All that being said, don't forget to execute order 66 on that like button, and let's get building. I'm going to start the city by gently placing down one of my buildings.
Oh, come on!
Well, that's one way to do it. Anyways, it's time to design the general layout and vibe of the city. Mygeeto is a rich, fancy place, and I want everything to feel elegant and lavishly constructed, but I also want to incorporate a lot of nature into the layout since I love building outdoor terrain, and it'll help add some much needed color to the sea of gray. I'm taking some inspiration from feudal Japan, which has always been one of my favorite ancient cultures. The tapering architecture and rock gardens and pink trees give a sense of elegance and power that is perfect for my vision of Mygeeto, especially since the buildings already look similar. To get that iconic pink look for the trees, I had to make a very expensive haul. Turns out purple and pink foliage isn't super common, so this little order of leaves and flowers cost over 20 bucks. But the dark purple leaves will add a unique color to everything, and the pink flowers will really pop against the dark foliage. I'm not doing anything fancy for the trunks, just small reddish brown poles, since the leaves are the main attraction. I want different sections of the city to be lower than others, so the city looks like it was really built into the mountain and not just on a flat dinner plate. So there'll be natural rock walls in places with stairs getting from one level to the other. I'll probably also have some small roads going in between the levels for vehicles to use. I know that means more rock work, but the end result will be worth it. Plus, it'll be mixed in with the buildings, gardens, and other cool builds, so it won't be too much of a pain. I also want to add statues in with the rockwork. I feel like this would be a great way to elevate the rocky areas and make the whole city feel more elegant and detailed. Man, I'm loving how everything is meshing together so far for the city, but we'll talk more about that later. For now, it's time to finish a pillar. I was waiting until I had the rock wall finished to build this part of the pillar so I would know how tall to make it, but I realized that's unnecessary since the bottom of the pillar is just brick. I can pull it off the base plate super easily, so if I finish the top of this pillar and still need more height, I can add more bricks to the bottom later. Being able to finish the top of this pillar is really nice because I felt like the rock wall was holding up so much of the mock. Plus, now I can finally see how my sloped pillar design will look built in a much larger scale, since so far I've only built the smaller one, and this bigger one is going to have longer flat sections on the sides, which might look weird combined with the shapes and techniques that I decided to go with the slopes. It's been kind of funny watching each pillar come together because with each one I use less and less bricks. I think the first one I did was completely solid inside, but this one will be much more hollow since I realized filling up the interior is not needed and takes up so much extra time and brick. The sloped sections ate up pretty much all my inverted slopes, which is good to know since I still need to build 2 more, so it's about time I hit up Bricklink for some reinforcement. So, progress update. I got that little chunk of the city all finished. Really happy with how this looks. It's nice to be able to visualize and see all the different components coming together, like the statues, rock structures, steps, plants, just, because I had all these ideas for things I wanted to combine, but seeing them all together, it looks so good, especially this right here. I don't know what it is about having the statues just perched up on the rock structures and the steps cutting through them just looks so cool. And I think it's going to be awesome to have different sections of the city at different heights. I think it's just going to make that whole section more dynamic and interesting instead of having everything on one flat plane. It's definitely making me more motivated to get that rock work done so I can actually start building this. Another added bonus is I get to reuse the statues from Coruscant. The pillar is looking real good. I did say earlier, I did mention earlier that, I can adjust this to make it taller pretty easily by putting more bricks on the bottom, but looking at it and comparing it to the rock wall, I honestly don't think I'll need to make it much taller than this. So it's nice to have basically a finished pillar right here. And then I was able to run the cage and maintenance ladder all the way up to the top. Did get a little tricky right there trying to continue the ladder portion. And I'm probably gonna have to adjust this just because it doesn't look good, but at least I have something in for now. And then once I get the actual bridge on, I'll know better. I'm just gonna cut out or take out a hole of the bottom of the bridge so that when I stick the section of the bridge up here on the pillar, these little pieces, this cage will just run up into the actual bridge. One thing I do also want to keep in mind is making the bridge too tall, because you can see right here, this pillar is already about at the same height as the rockwork, and I want to go a little bit taller. And the reason I don't want to make this too tall is the bridge is where the main battle is going to be, where a lot of the action's happening. And if it's too tall, like if it's up to right here, it's really going to be hard to easily show the bridge. You know, I'm gonna have to hold the camera up like this, or if people come in and just want to see the thing in person, I want this to be, you know, easily visible, especially if anybody's like a little bit shorter. So I don't want to go too much higher for those, you know, for kind of like the visual and cinematic purposes as well. But speaking of bridge pillars, I figured out what I'm going to be doing right here.
You all left a lot of great feedback in regards to my tunnel issue last week, which got me thinking. I was fixated on the idea that the main pillar with the tunnel had to be at a different angle than the bridge to be able to match the section of pillar underneath it. But I just don't think that's possible, at least not while also having a large enough tunnel going through it. So I decided to just build two sides of a tunnel and stick them on the bridge facing the same direction as the rest of the bridge. This allowed me to create a much bigger opening, and it was so much easier to build. I don't know how exactly this will connect properly to the underside of the main bridge now that it's running at a different angle than it, but that's future Ethan's problem. I kept the design of the tunnel the same, but added an extra row of slopes to make the tunnel look a little bit better. And I just now realized I should have added lights to the tunnel walls, but I don't think it's a big deal not having them, considering the rest of the bridge is lit up and I can always come back and add them later. I'm pulling up as much of the dark bluish gray tile as I can, since after last week I realized how little I have left, so I need to make it last as long as possible. Now this tunnel is really starting to take shape, but it needs a roof so we can really see what it's going to look like. I'm only going to add plate to start, since I don't want to make you sit through even more pillar building this week. Now that this is in place, I can start to figure out how it's going to eventually twist back to the right angle to sit under the main bridge. Some of you suggested not having this pillar sit on the bridge to avoid all these problems I've been dealing with, but the reason I did it this way is because I want to center the main bridge in the middle of the mock, and the maintenance bridge intersects with the middle point of the mock right where the pillar needs to be. So to move the pillar to the side would mean scooting the whole bridge to the side as well. But I think this looks good. The tunnel is much bigger and scales to the rest of the mock better than the last version, and honestly it doesn't look that weird having these two sections of the pillar pointing in different directions. It doesn't really stand out or look super awkward or out of place. Unfortunately, I made it just barely too small to fit a fighter tank. Bruh. But it can fit smaller walkers and vehicles, which is fine since, you know, this is a smaller, less used bridge made for civilian and maintenance vehicles, not battle tanks. Unless the Republic decides to bring in some Shermans, I guess. Now that the main pillar is in, I can tile off the rest of the bridge. That also means finishing this large snow patch. I wanted this end to meet up with the pillar so I could pile snow up against it, so it looks like the wind has been driving the snow into the pillar and a little bit is going to be inside the tunnel. I'm trying to focus more on snow now, since I feel like there's been an underwhelming amount in the mock so far, and that's a very important feature of this planet and city. I also get to tile off the rest of the bridge floor and bury the last two lights of this section. But I do get to cover up the big battery box so we can finally see the full finished look of the bridge floor. I did add a small removable tile so I can turn the lights on and off with ease. There's an exposed expansion board at this end of the bridge as well that I'm going to cover with snow later on, which is going to be used to power the lights of the last bridge section. So as far as lighting goes for the maintenance bridge, all the foundation stuff is in. It's about time I did some rockwork with an emphasis on snow. I'm used to building rockwork that is mostly one color with some small sections of highlights, and I think I just fell back into those habits when building this mountain, but that's not going to work with this mock since it makes the snow look too patchy and unrealistic. I need more white on the wall. If you look at a snowy mountain, it's, well, you know, snowy. Part of the reason I haven't done a ton of snow up to this point is because I've been building parts of the rockwork that will be covered by the bridges, so it makes sense for them to be a little bit more bare. But moving forward, the sides and above the bridge are more exposed and need more white. I think the main thing I need to do is just add lots of smaller patches of snow to make the big ones stand out less and look more cohesive together. Right now the mountain is solid gray with large patches of white, but I want it to have a much more speckled look. So it looks like the mountain is more evenly coated in snow across the whole face, not just in large blotches with nothing in between. Who knew making snowy rockwork would be this complex? But the changes I made really paid off, and the mountain is already snowier and the big sections look less awkward. And I'm going to keep adding more snow detailing each week. I'll probably throw in a cave or two as well. Once the bridges are in, I'll have a much better idea of what sections don't need a lot of snow and which ones do. I've I've been neglecting the creation of More Galactic Marines, so this week I'm going to decal some more. It's just so hard to keep up with them while also doing all my other video work, since these are the most complex clones I've ever had to do. The extra cloths, multiple coats of paint on the helmet, and tricky weather conditions can make it up to a 3-day process just to get a couple of them done. Almost makes me wish LEGO had made them already, just so I could buy a bunch, but I doubt they'd be as detailed. The weather has been really warm and will be for the next couple of days, so I really need to take advantage of that and do a bunch, since in like a month when it's 0 degrees outside, it might be really hard to spray and seal the decals, and I still need to decal like 30 of these bad boys. I plan on being done with Mygeeto in February, and so I can't just wait until spring to finish the rest of these either if the weather gets too cold. So the decal grind is gonna be real. I got to use some of my Galactic Marines in a clone base challenge I did with some other YouTubers. It was a lot of fun building a clone base on Mustafar, and I had some Marines walking around Guide and a lava river protected by their awesome suits. If you want to check out the full challenge, I'll link it at the top of the video. If LEGO were to ever make Galactic Marines, what kind of set do you think they'd come in? Let me know in the comments. These Marines are definitely worth the effort though, as they're really going to elevate the mock, especially my Flame Troopers. My plan is to have 50 in total, so I can have 25 available for each bridge. Unfortunately, because of the harsh conditions, I can't use any of my regular grunts to boost the ranks of clones, which is why I'm pushing myself to decal as many Marines as I can. I don't want to have this awesome mock and have meager little groups of clones charging across the bridges. Designing that chunk of the city was a big win for me. Not in the sense of getting physical building done, but a more mental one. It made me really excited to actually start building the city and reinvigorated me to keep grinding through the more boring parts of this project, as my motivation has been really low of late. Next week, I'm hoping to start assembling the different sections of the main bridge so we can start to see what that's going to look like. I also want to start work on the giant tri-droid. All that being said, that wraps up this video. Thank you guys all so much for watching. Don't forget to let me know what you thought about everything down below in the comments, and I will catch you next time. But until then, happy building.